and he's going to share some developments of design thinking in Australia and Australian context. So I'm very happy to have you here, Mark, and this is your clicker, and I'll give you the mic as well. There you go.
I've got everything.
Yes, hopefully.
Well, welcome. Well, as we say from Australia, g'day. To do. So, yeah, I'm going to roll straight on. We can catch up after if you need some stuff to back up what I'm going to rant at you at the moment from design thinking. So, yeah, design for sustainable futures. I'm a member of the DesignThinkers group, so I have an Amsterdam connection. Arnie van Oostrum is the central figure of the open innovation platform that was structured in about 2010 for a network of design thinkers. So I joined up with the DesignThinkers group looking at design as process in about 2010. So I was invited to the family as a member of the group in about 2013. So picking up on what Gilles was saying, taking it outside of the European ethos, you can't get much further away than Australia at this point in time. So it's actually noted as being called the Antipodes. It's the actual opposite point on the other side of the globe to the European context and construct. So while you guys are standing around having coffee, we're hanging around upside down in Australia. There you go. So, but the Greeks had it all over us because they knew way back then that the world was round. So this is from about 150 BC. And the Antipodes, as you see, is on the other side of the world to that. So I'm not quite sure what happened to society. The 4 points of the globe and the flat earthers went quite around a circular sort of environment. So maybe they all became Republican voters in the United States. So yes, the Antipodes, and largely by that terminology from the Oxford Dictionary, is seen as people from Australia and New Zealand. So I'm an antipode. Okay, so just this commonality, I like to sort of look at commonality from the other side of the world. We do have things in common. Mapping. These are some of the early maps that indicate Europe and the continent from sailors and explorers, and Holland was one of those countries that was in the forefront of that. Technology, transportation and the like. And as you can see in the southern regions there's a non-described land, and as we were talking about before, people that invented things. The Dutch actually discovered Australia first, if you go by a Eurocentric view, but there is an indigenous population that's been occupying that as the longest continuous civilization and culture for 60,000 years in the Australian indigenous community. So, yeah, so New Holland and New South Wales. So this marriage between the UK and the Dutch. The Dutch seem to walk away from it for some reason, right? So we've ended up with what we've currently got. So yes, Australia and Europe. So it is a vast land, and we do have our challenges from a sustainable point in that instance. So we are probably in the top 10 in terms of the worst per capita, but we've got by land mass, but we've got a big land mass, so we sort of feature high in the ratings. So yeah, once again, population size by scale. So we're about a quarter the size of Spain, about 25 million people on that continent. So, the arid, the brown in the centre is desert, the yellow is hard land to actually farm and manage, and the coastal regions is where the 25 million people live. So, but leaning back to what I was saying before, different cultures prior to European takeover of the land, there was about 200 different language groups of indigenous population within that framework. So that's a bit about Australia. Talking about mapping, they had their own mapping techniques and storytelling, so the dots are usually representative of water holes and sustaining their system. So it was either drawn up from them sitting on the ground and drawing with their fingers in the dirt. So this is a European construct of painting onto bark, but it was their means of communication. So we're newcomers in Australia. We've taken European ideas into an Australian context. This was early European representations of the Australian bush, and that's actually what the Australian bush looks like. So it's quite a difference. It takes a lot to develop a perceptual view of that. So we in Australia, probably about 220 years into occupation, then are still trying to understand the landscape and the relationship with that landscape. A little bit about me, just very quickly. Studied a master's in industrial design last century, end of last century, middle of the 90s. Looked at Tuan, who wrote a book on topophilia, perception movement. Moving across to E.O. Wilson in 1984, wrote a book called Biophilia. And my thesis in the mid-90s was around biomic design, which was allied to biophilic design. So, and that's through my engagement working with the Indigenous community that gave me that insight. Okay, so yeah, I've written on biophilic design with International Society of Biourbanism. So I'm leaning towards ethology, which is the science of animal, human behaviour and place. So that's where my head is at the moment. So, alternative facts is probably what I want to talk about to you today. We're talking about knowledge, known knowledge and opinions. Everyone's entitled to your opinions. You're all innovators, you're all designers, but it's the factual aspect of it, and that's what we do with the jams, using the cards, collect evidence, so it is factual, not just opinions. So there's quite a structure to that. So there's an interesting online tool called The Conversation. So if you can access that free. It's academics that get together and write on current issues within society, so do have a tap into that. And this is from a little while ago, 2012, talking about you're not entitled to your opinion. So it's a very interesting, provocative argument. So it comes down to just this opinion as an idea, but then factual, backing it up. So that's what we do in the jams, and we try and work with people to gather their opinions, to collect them together and establish fact. So I won't go too much into that, but hopefully these slides will be available for you after. So really, it's participatory design is what we're engaging in with the jams, how we're trying to bring people together and help them to participate in the process so they're not feeling excluded. So that's the whole power of the tools that the digital school here at Media Lab have generated. So this is my statement about it empowers citizens to move from opinion to certain knowledge. So it's that factual aspect of it. So just gave a paper in India. The theme of the conference there was the new narrative, and so I've laid over this the new transitional narrative. So India's in this transitional stage from a level of society into a more contemporary service-based society. And I was looking at design and cities, so talked about design thinking and cities, oceans, UN and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So here's the head of the World Design Organization in Srini, and the guy on the other side is carrying a Stussy machine gun, but it's not to look after Srini, it's to look after one of the local members of parliament in India. So Srini was talking at the same conference around the Sustainable Development Goals and what the World Design Organisation has been doing. So my pitch at that presentation was how can the World Design Organisation and organisations in India like the Confederation of Indian Industry work together with design to solve these problems. So that's an agenda that I have got in front of me going forward. So Global Goals Jam, working with UNDP, run it for the last 3 years in Melbourne, out of RMIT University. So 17 goals, a layered structure approach to design and the different goals. So between the biosphere, society and economy, there's a good way to break down the 17 SDGs with the partnership at the top. So yes, running it again this year, Media Lab UNDP, and in September down at RMIT. My way of explaining to people around what design thinking is, and I teach in research methods into a master's stream at RMIT. The scientific view, deductive, where you form a theory, generate a hypothesis through observation and testing. You either confirm or deny that. Social science has taken the opposite view, an inductive view, through observation, pattern, tentative hypothesis and forming theories. This is the path that most designers usually like to take. But design thinking takes an adductive approach to thinking. So we're taking the best and sampling the best from those two particular streams of research and generating that into a way of dealing with problems in the world. So my main problem is microplastics at the moment. Microplastics is plastics that are less than 5 millimeters in diameter. I'm looking at generating a topic around the JAM, around the Sustainable Development Goals 14 and 11. So 11 is a pivotal, central one, cities, and that's set by the guys here at the Global Goals JAM. Be looking at life below water, but health is also tied into that. Okay, so it's very concerned about the quality of seafood as a major food source being contaminated through microplastic pollutions in water. So I'm doing collaborative work with academics in India and Australia around that particular thing. So that's what we're looking to go forward is. So I'm pulling together partners from various key organisations. This is the Banksia Foundation, which is a major sustainable award in Australia. It's been running for about 30 years. They're partners with my JAM in Melbourne, forming linkages with Global Compact Cities program as supporters, and we've also got our local United Nations Association that's in support of the goals. So SDGs are starting to permeate all levels of government. All levels of government are starting to use this instead of the triple bottom line approach. They're starting to relate their activities against all 17 goals. So this is a major meeting of 100 heads for state government organisations, or different organisations and departments, all getting the message that they need to start to use sustainable development goals as their reporting and auditing commitments. So if you do get a chance, this is a 10-minute video. We won't play that today, but it's talking about our state government's approach to using sustainable development goals in reporting and looking at everything that they do, rather than the triple bottom line approach, addressing it through the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's it from me. So this is just my original product-based organisations, Design Providence, DesignThinkers Group, which is the Amsterdam connection, and my attempt at a non-for-profit is a collaboration between Australian and Indian designers to address those issues. So thank you very much for your time.